it was physically demanding work, and the fumes of the ink were giving me such a headache. I mean, I couldn't even see straight. You know, these guys have been doing this for like 20 and 30 years there.
That reminds me of doing blueprints, you know, blue lines. Ugh. The blue line machine with the ammonia.
Oh, yeah. Because with the first internship that I did, they were still using blue lines. And, you know, so of course, me being the intern, who's going to be doing all the damn blue lines. Yep. And it was kind of fun in a way, but how many people in our profession are ever going to be able to say that after our generation leaves? They're never going to know what... I mean, there was an art to that. I screwed up many a blue line by not aligning it right and everything else. Right. I mean, there was really an art to that.
Yeah, totally. You had to be coordinated.
Yeah, you had to be coordinated. And then what was did you need to slow it down a little bit because you've got like a Mylar versus a vellum and stuff like that? I mean, there was a real art to that thing.
Welcome to the Archispeak podcast, the podcast for architects by architects, where we discuss all things about architecture. I'm Neil Pan. Each episode, Evan Troxel, Cormac Phelan, and me invite you in on the conversation as we talk about everything in the profession, both the good and the bad. Maybe you're considering a career in architecture, you're still in school, or you've been around the block more times than you'd like to admit. Join us in the studio as we gather around the water cooler and talk about this profession we call architecture. It's time for some Archispeak.
I died in South Africa, only outlined my body in Tiffany's blue. When I died, I drove riding and swam with the dolphins and Lisa Frank and you.
Welcome to episode 53 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And today's show, we have a returning sponsor, and that's ArcCat. And we're really happy to have them back, and we'll talk about them a little later in the show. But we also have another sponsor, and this is a new sponsor for Archispeak, and that's NCARB. And so we really want to thank NCARB for sponsoring the Archispeak podcast, and we'll have a little bit more to talk about them later as well. And then we have a little business to address. And Evan, I think we have a friend of the show.
That's right. We have a new friend of the show this week from Olympia, Washington. And that is Alexander Bergman. And Alexander donated $5 to become a friend of the show. So thank you very much, Alexander. If you would like to become a friend of the show and help donate to the cause here, you can do so at archispeakpodcast.com/donate. And if you would like your name read on the air, we would be happy to do that. Check out archispeakpodcast.com/donate and become a friend of the show. We love our new friends. And so shout out to Alexander. And we'd like to get some more new friends of the show and meet more people this year. So check it out.
Or returning friends of the show, too.
That's right.
Yeah. So just a plug there. And also just a shout out to Alexander for an awesome post over on our Facebook page. Just really great to have him appreciate the show and let us know. And if you'd like to do that, you can do so as well, either in the comments to the episode or over on our Facebook page or Twitter. And links for all of them can be found at archispeakpodcast.com. So thank you, Alexander, for the great comment. We really appreciate that. And something else I wanted to bring up, too, before we move on is Greg Lavadera brought up some really great comments on our last show, episode 52, about liability. So I just wanted to point that out. If you hadn't seen Greg's comments, we got a couple others as well on that particular episode. So head on over to archispeakpodcast.com/episodes/52 to read up on Greg's comments. He wrote a couple of great things on there. So definitely follow up on that episode and see what Greg had to say. I just wanted to point that out. And then we have one other announcement to make. We got published recently. That is architecturaldigest.com has a blog, and they posted what they are calling the best architecture and design podcasts. And we were fortunate enough to be mentioned, along with a number of other great podcasts that you should also check out. But we were very excited to have Architectural Digest call out the Archispeak podcast as one of the best architecture and design podcasts. So thank you, and a big shout out to them for mentioning us. And there will be a link in the show notes to this episode. So go check that out, and then you can go read the article itself. So
tell everybody how they get our show notes.
You can sign up for our show notes on just about any page at archispeakpodcast.com. There is a subscribe link usually on the right-hand side of the page. And you sign up for the show notes, and they will be sent out to you when the show goes live every other Sunday.
Yep, and that just lets you follow along with the links and the articles and the things that we talk about on the show. And that's about it. So it's nice that it comes to you. You don't have to go looking for it, especially for those of you who subscribe to the show through iTunes and aren't listening on the website. I mean, obviously, we post our show notes with each episode on the site as well. But if you're a subscriber, you might want to get those emailed to you. So definitely do that.
Absolutely. So tonight, actually, Cormac had a great idea. It's something we have been doing this now for a couple of years, the show that is. And there's a few things that he brought up that I thought we hadn't really discussed before, and it'd be kind of a lot of fun to do. And that is talking about jobs. We're going to shorten it to jobs, but really kind of what sort of jobs did we have before, maybe during and after school, or after our college experience, or during, that is. And then, what kind of maybe drew us into architecture, and what kind of activities or things that shaped us, and, how that could shape us going forward too. So
really drew us in?
Oh,
I see what you did
All
there.
pun intended.
I get it.
I'm just reading what he wrote, so
You could have just let me say it.
well, I could, but
Yeah.
I was on a roll there. So, all right, go ahead and take it off, Cormac. Get us started tonight.
Take it off, Cormac.
Wait, that's not one of the jobs I want to talk about. I mean,
Yeah, better not talk about that one.
That's for the After Dark episode, Cormac. We know it's coming.
I mean, just for everybody out there listening, it's not a job that I will ever admit to. I mean, ever did. Ever did. Sorry, ever
exactly.
did. No, I've been listening to absolutely love, and if nobody ever listens to these, you probably should. NPR does a great series called StoryCorps. If you go over to NPR's website and you can look up their programs, and you'll find StoryCorps, and they've got a bunch of subtitles and of different subjects that they talk about, and one of them is jobs and work. And what I always find interesting about this is they've interviewed people that have been here in this country forever, new immigrants. They talk to all sorts of people, and they, a lot of them, either focus on how they've, been able to make it. Sometimes, they've talked about the break it stories. But it, it was really interesting, and it was always thought, I always think back to how I got started. I don't think it's ever anything that we've ever talked about is how did you guys get started? What set you on this path? Were there any jobs that you ever did when you were a kid that you thought this is a job that's going to help me, with what I think is my future career in architecture, or were they just jobs to get you to this point? And then, I was also thinking,
or diversions during
or
your
diversions
career.
during, exactly. And I had a few of those. Then there's also the, we've had some pretty hard years over the past couple of, at least half decade. And there's a lot of people who've left architecture or had to do other things until architecture picked back up. And, I'm just wondering what happened. I know, Neil, that, you've, you kind of had a pretty hard patch where, you're working on your own. Things have slowed down for you, and what got you through it? So I just want to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, this is a good subject. I think that a lot of people who go through architecture school, at least design type schools that my experience was, it was basically the mantra was, you dedicate your life to this from here until you die. And so I think that it's pretty interesting to see where people come from and in the diversions that they take, or if they really do kind of take it on wholeheartedly, singularly for the rest of their life. So good subject. I think this will be fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, Neil, you want to start?
Uh,
Well, back in my time.
oh, come on, Mr. Birthday Boy.
That's right.
Happy birthday to Cormac.
That's right.
Thanks.
Happy birthday, Cormac. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, yeah. We won't talk about how old he is, but
Still not as old as you.
not as old as me, but not far behind. Thinking back to how I got started in this, I don't know if I had a job or anything early on that kind of guided me into architecture. I mean, there were definitely
a way of life.
Well, why
no,
architecture?
I think why architecture? It's a great question. I honestly don't know. I really don't have an answer. But when I was younger, like a lot of kids, I was into Legos. I don't know if that is something that necessarily drove me to becoming an architect, but just the idea of building and also just imagining things. I think those are all building blocks, to kind of throw a pun there, to starting that type of a career. There was certainly no one in my family that had this sort of background or education, so I didn't pick it up from anyone. And so there's really no one thing I could say that kind of led me down this path. When I was younger, I did like to draw, and so I never developed the kind of cartoon skills, Cormac, that you have, but I did like to draw. And I think that probably led me on a path as I got into, I do recall quite clearly when I was in junior high school, there was a drafting course that was kind of a subsection of the woodshop course. So I took woodshop and we did a number of, we did some sandblasting projects and making a cutting board for my mom and just kind of the basic simple things you would do back in junior high school. And as part of that class, we took drafting for like 1/4 of the semester. And I was really good at it. I don't know. I mean, I really strive to do very well, and I seem to have a talent for it. And back then it was, T-squares or T-squares and triangles or I think actually if some of our listeners out there remember the old mechanical arms that would telescope, across the table. And I hated those things because as a left-handed person, they were always set up for right-handers. And it's like I was the one oddball that had to sit at the one desk that maybe had a left-handed mechanical arm.
Just get a parallel bar.
You can swing it around. A parallel bar I can't stand.
I've got one at work.
We didn't have parallel bars on there.
Parallel bar or the arm?
Nope, just a parallel bar.
Back then we had the arms in school. We didn't have parallel bars.
I had one at home. I had an arm at home, and I liked it a lot, but I didn't have to deal with the whole left-handed thing like you did.
It is a bane of our existence.
Yeah, I bet.
The thing I remember about those mechanical arms is they had these like plastic with these little metal things on the top where they would like slide into a little, I don't know really how you would attach these things. And they'd kind of slide in. And so as you're drawing a long line, the further you got out, the more that thing would kind of bend and it was almost impossible to get a damn straight line out of those things, at least anything longer than 12 inches long or something. But anyway, I took that class and I didn't really take it because I knew about the drafting. I was taking wood shop and I don't know why, but I did those courses. And I think what happened though is by doing that, I was really good at doing those drawings. And so when I looked at high school classes, I wanted to take like a drafting course. And so I suppose that really kind of got me started. And I did take drafting all the way through high school. And I think the one thing I definitely got out of drafting from high school was that I hated mechanical drafting. I hated it. I had no interest in drawing, parts and gears and stuff like that. It was like, oh, I hate this. And I think we, are like electrical line diagrams. I forget all the stupid things they made us draw. And ironically, actually, I still have all of the original, what we call them plates or something like that. These 8.5 by 11 kind of yellow magenta looking, not magenta, but these kind of yellow pieces of paper that we were drawing on with number 2 pencils back then. And this sounds very archaic, but I actually still have all those old drawings.
What's a pencil?
So anyway, that really kind of, I guess it was a progression, starting kind of in junior high school, going through high school, taking the drafting courses. And when I left high school, I took one class at the local junior college, that is. And it was a mechanical drafting sort of course. And I finished it. I did really well. And I said, I'll never do this again. I hated it. And it was not long after that I kind of was looking for a drafting job and fell into a job working for an architect at the time, just not even a year out of high school. And that had a huge influence in the rest of my career, because the gentleman I worked for at the time was a graduate of Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. And pretty much that was like the only school I applied to when it was, when I applied to go to college. And, kind of the rest is history after that. That was back in 1986, almost a year after I graduated high school. And from that experience, it has literally been the only job I've had since then has been architecturally related, in a firm or something like that, or now on my own.
Wow.
That has been my only job. The last job I had outside of architecture was the summer of 1986. I was working at a local hardware store called Orchard Supply Hardware here in the Bay Area. And had a funny thing happen. One evening, I used to have a water bed, parents from the 60s or, anyway, parents older than that. I mean, not from the 60s, but anyway, I had a water bed growing up, and one night it busted. And so water all over, and I had to deal with it, kind of an emergency situation in the middle of the night. But the carpet was completely soaked and everything. And so long story short, I had a job working for this architect. So this was during the summer. So I go to work in this job, and I go during my lunchtime down to the Orchard Supply Hardware, and I talked to the manager, assistant manager was there. And I said, hey, I need tonight off. I can't come into work. I need to, take care of this water damage at my mom's house, right? I was still living at home at the time. And he looked at me like, no, you can't have tonight off. I need you here to work. And he's like, why don't you go home now and do it? I said, because I'm at my job. This is my career. I'm not going to leave that job. I mean, I'm not going to take time off of this job. And so he just said, no, I'm not going to give you tonight off. You can make the decision. And I said, okay, I've made the decision. Here's my resignation. I quit. I will go back and work my architecture job, because I will do that for the rest of my life. I will not work in your piece of shit hardware store for the rest of my life. And ever since then, I've never worked anywhere else but in architecture. So, anyway,
wow.
Interesting little story there. I mean, kind of how I got started, and that's been it. I've literally worked in different firms ever since then.
Have you ever been back to the hardware store?
I go back there all the time and buy stuff. It's real close to my house.
That damn pan. He left us in lurch.
They've remodeled that store. Actually, the store that I worked in, the shopping center that it's located at, the building was actually more towards the front, and they ended up tearing that building down and building it towards the back of the shopping center where the rest of it is, and then turned the spot where the building used to be into parking out in the front. So that building's technically gone now. But
I added a picture of a drafting arm into the show notes so that everybody who's listening, who's like scratching their head, what the heck's he talking about?
Oh,
now you can see it.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll definitely have a link to that.
Awesome.
Because that's definitely something to see, those mechanical drafting arms. So, but anyway, I mean, that's kind of how I got started. There wasn't really any job I had that did it for me, but I think the influence of taking those early drafting courses back in junior high school, that kind of led me into, taking the drafting courses in high school. And then after that, it was like, I had a talent for that. So, I just kept doing it. And I never developed any kind of, like I mentioned earlier, a cartoon type of talent like that you're so good at, Cormac. But put a parallel bar and a T-square, or a T-square and a triangle in my hand, and I could draft.
Weapons of choice.
That's right. They're weapons of choice.
The brother can rock a digitizer.
And as the people that follow me on Instagram or on Twitter know, I still design with those tools.
I just bought a rolling ruler and an adjustable triangle last week just so I have that stuff. Yeah, it's awesome.
I love all my stuff. I still have it. I mean, I'm sitting next to me is my drafting table that's got a parallel bar on it, but the parallel bar is only used to basically hold the pencils from rolling up and down. And I've got a T-square sitting on it.
Nice.
And I use the T-square.
Well, I think for those listeners that are out there maybe in college now, I think, we kind of joke a little bit about the T-square, or the parallel bar really, and some of the old drafting tools. But I think what's really important about spending some time to develop those skills a little bit, and I know, everything we do, even what I do now is produced on the computer and printed, and that's what gets turned into my actual construction documents and for permit. But I think it's really important, and I think that those in school should really pay attention to develop those skills and we've done a whole show on sketching before, but I think being able to sketch out an idea quickly is really something very important when you're meeting with that client or you're having your project meeting in the conference room or something, and somebody makes a comment or you have a sudden burst of an idea, and being able to roll out that trace and kind of quickly sketch something out. And even if it's just kind of very rough, but just having some basic skills to do that, because nobody's going to just whip out the computer real quick and say, "Oh, here, wait till I start this up."
Exactly.
Okay, no, it's still not ready yet. The icon's still bouncing there. Damn, Revit's not starting yet. Nobody's going to do that. But in like 2 seconds, you can roll out some trace and start sketching, and really to me, that's how I design. I go back over to the drafting table and I sit down. I may do, a lot of remodel work that I do. I'll draft up the existing house, and then I'll take that and print it out and go sit down and roll out my trace and start sketching over it. And to me, that's how I think. I know maybe some people don't do that now, or many people probably don't do that now, but I still think for those spur of the moments, you're in the meeting or you're in that conference room talking to a client or even coworkers, I think it's really important to develop that skill for doing something like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there is something I still think is important. And I know volumes have been written about this and talked about. So, we can talk more about that, but I think actually first we have a sponsor to talk or to mention first.
Would you like somebody to draw CAD details for you, create BIM objects for you, write specs for you? Would you like someone to do it for free? ARCAT has already done all of this for you and more. So if you can go to arcat.com, ARCAT.com, and search the ARCAT libraries for these products and more free of charge. No registration required to download content. ARCAT has created a website devoted to you, the building professional, to find building product information fast and hassle-free. So once again, check out Arcat today at arcat.com. So thanks, Arcat, for sponsoring the show. Once again, we really appreciate it.
I have only worked in this product one time before in my life, and I've always vowed that I never really wanted to work with it again. And it's not the bad product or anything. It's just we
just
always
bad enough to vow to never work with it again.
People don't hold EFIS in high esteem, and so
what's EFIS, Uncle Cormac?
Or EFIS, IFIS, however people pronounce it. It is exterior insulated. What? Wow, I've completely forgot. I've blanked on the acronym. Anyway,
to go to Arcat and look it up.
You need to go to Arcat and look it up. However, but what it is
exterior insulation finishing system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
And I needed to look up some details for it on how to terminate the EFIS system at the windows and window heads and jambs and stuff like that. Because it's kind of using this in conjunction with cavity wall brick, and so I just wanted to see how it finished between the two and transition between the two materials. And where did I go? I went to Arcat.
Nice,
excellent.
So you looked up details on the site for that.
I looked up details on the site, and not only do they help provide details, but I also was able to pull down some specs.
Cool. So they have got PDF details, they've got DWG details, they've got Revit stuff, they've got all kinds of cool stuff on there.
Absolutely.
So check it out, arcat.com.
And the great thing about them is that they've pretty much anything that you're going to need for your documentations, whether it be details, drawings, cut sheets, specs, they have it all. And it's a really good, it is a very good tool to use.
So Cormac, how did you get started?
How did I get started? Well, mine's, we just recently posted, a bunch of guys posted the Architalk, and it was Architalk number 5, Evan?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was number 4 or 5.
And it was about favorite things. And rather than going the course of favorite thing of Bob's Pet Rock or, cars and things like that and stuff, I actually always remember the memory of how I got started, or at least what I believe is the spark that got me started down this crazy path that's led to me to right here, sitting down here talking with you guys. And so I wasn't too much older than my youngest child. She's 7 years old, and I believe it was either 8 or 9. I was on a class trip, and we were going to the art museum. And even back then, I was drawing all the time. I drew so much that everybody knew that I was going to have a really good time at the art museum because I got to see other artists, which I absolutely love going to art museums to see the techniques of other artists and stuff. But for some reason, this day, when I went to the art museum, I paid more attention to the building. Yeah, we walked in. Once the St. Petersburg Museum of Fine Arts in St. Petersburg, Florida. As we went into the lobby space, gathered everybody up, and the teachers kind of split everybody up, and we went on our merry way. For some reason, we were pulled into the kind of center courtyard area. Nice sunny day, sun was kind of shining down inside of it. I'd never been in a space like that before. And for some reason, I was just like, wow, look at this place. And, I was weirdly smitten by the way that the building looked, the way that, people kind of moved through the building. And it was this weird, kind of like innate feeling that I was just like, yeah, this is cool. This is what I want to do. And before I really even knew what the word architect was, I kind of had this feeling that that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I've had so many jobs in my life. One time, and if I can find the sketchbook and I can make a list of it, but I had made a list one time before, a couple jobs ago, and kind of went through everything, and I had 31 jobs. And there were a variety of different jobs. So it wasn't, just the Neil's story of sticking to one thing. It was just whatever got the buck in my pocket to move on to the next job, to kind of just make sure things, I could stay on my path. But even though I had some weird ones, and I made a list. I'm not going to post all of them on there, but I'm going to run down a few of them. Obviously everybody's heard me talk about, being in the Army. I was also in the Alabama National Guard after I got out. But while I was doing all of that, I was a bike shop mechanic for, road bikes, 10 speeds, that kind of thing. I've worked as the obligatory bus boys and things like that. I don't know if any of you ever worked in a restaurant, but hard work. What was interesting about, I always look at, what did I learn from all of these jobs? Never really, I don't think I ever really actually hated the jobs. They were jobs. I chose to do them, and so I did them. But, one of the things that I always thought was fun and interesting about some of these jobs were, what did I learn from them? Being a kind of a shy, introverted kid growing up, I hated interacting and talking with other people just because, I just didn't feel very comfortable with it. And all of these different jobs and all of these different things that I've done has kind of enabled me to kind of come out of my shell and be able to interact and be able to stand in front of clients now and present to them, because I had all of these other experiences, like being an anchor in a box cutting factory.
What does that mean?
What?
What does that mean? Okay, so anytime you buy a package of, say, Little Debbie's or whatever, Little Debbie's is one of them, because I would have to go to the big, huge inking press and fill up all of the different inks, so that when you did a run of a couple thousand boxes a night of packaging, I would be the one who would do the ink.
Wow.
Which was pretty cleaning up at the end of the night was pretty nasty, because we're talking about industrial strength size vats of ink, and then you have to clean it all out, and clean the rollers, and clean the presses, because you'll have you guys ever done any kind of printing in art class or anything else, where you do the photographic emulsion plates?
Closest I've ever come to printing is filling up an ammonia bottle for a blue line printer.
Okay, it's just like that, but completely different.
Okay.
For newspapers and, large scale printing, normally what you would do is you would do they have this emulsified metal plate that basically you would put your copy down on top of it, shoot a photograph of it, any of the black space or the negative space. You would basically clean all of that off, and then what was left is what would actually be printed out. Would be the reverse of what would be printed out on the paper. And so, you could do photographs, the whole thing. And that's why when you look at old photographs and stuff, they're kind of like dot pixelated. It's because they're to be able to get the contrast in a photograph for a newspaper, you do it in a series of dots, not like, an actual flat plate. And so basically you clean all of this stuff, you do all of this, you set these, big, huge printers up. And when I say big, huge, I'm talking, if you were to turn, say a couple of, maybe 3 or 4 pickup trucks side by side. So the width of the nose to the bumper of the truck would be the width of it, and then the length would be all 4 of these things parked next to each other. So that's how big they were. And they would run, and so if you ever look at a package, you'll see kind of like this little target that has the different colors on it. Well, that's what we used to align all of the colors to make sure that when you put, the CMYK, if you, once you align all of those colors, they can make any color that you could possibly imagine. And so I would be responsible for basically setting up the printer, making sure it had a bunch of ink, and then when they came through to run it, I'd take them off and stack them up and put them on pallets.
Does that mean that when the plotter fails at the office, that they call you?
I don't go anywhere near it. I say, well,
He learned his lesson long ago.
yeah, you guys got a problem with your plotter here. Let's call a technician. Although I did used to, the plotter one of the plotters that we have at my current job, an older firm had one as well. And I used to fix that one all the time. So I know how to troubleshoot it.
Useful skills. I don't know how the bike part, though, comes into architecture, the bike fixing, but...
Actually, it was one of my first jobs that I had to... I was absolutely horrible at it. The bike mechanic part of it, actually like assembling a bike that somebody buys, that was fun. That was pretty easy, and I'm able to put my kids' bikes together and, tune them up when they need them to be tuned up. But the thing that it was the very first true, honest sales job that I ever had. And I was horrible at it. Trying to actually convince somebody this was after the Army, while I'd started architecture, actually just before architecture school. I didn't know how to sell anybody on anything. This was the path of being able to convince people of something. I realized early on that I wasn't that good at it, and it was a skill that I needed to get better at, especially nowadays that we have to
What you do all the time, right?
Yeah, we have to present and convince people. It's interesting, and the reason why I thought that this topic would be really interesting is because there's a lot of people who have to work through school, and I had, like I said, I had all sorts of jobs through school, and you may think that they're just a means to an end, but they actually will help teach you some interesting skills that you would normally not get in architecture school. I mean, we do presentations all the time, but when we're doing presentations in architecture school, even though, we're being told that this is a skill that we need to learn, we always have in the back of our mind, or at least I had in the back of my mind, that the skills that I'm learning were, I'm giving presentations to other people who know exactly what we're doing. So I never really felt that it was fully effective to teach me how to sell another architecture. It was always, okay, how do I get across to the layman?
Yeah, I've got a blog post that's been in draft for probably 6 months now talking about this exact thing.
See? And so really being able to be passionate enough about something like a giant bicycle, because he was one of the guy that I worked for, he sold the Giant mountain bikes. And
Giant, the brand name.
Giant, the brand
not
name.
Like
not
bikes for giants.
Really huge ones.
Thank you for clearing that up.
So Giant, the brand, he sold a lot of those. I mean, that was kind of one of his big sellers because they, weren't like super expensive and they were good introductory mountain bikes and stuff. To learn about the product and then to be able to really be passionate about selling the product was something that I needed to learn. And what was interesting about it is that although I wasn't very good at it then, I think being able to, be confident in what you're trying to convey to people when you're, giving a presentation and then really selling it with passion is what we do. I mean, that's, anytime we put this much heart and soul into our projects, we can sell them. But it was, how do you sell them? And I think all of these other experiences of being able to, when I was in the Alabama National Guard, when I was in school at Auburn, I had practical experience that they wanted in the National Guard as an instructor. I had no thoughts in my mind that I wanted to be an instructor. But because I was combat experienced in the Patriot missile system, and they were converting the Patriot missile system from a active Army job to trying it out in the Alabama National Guard, they were like, hey, would you would you like to come and become an instructor? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I was more looking for, yeah, sure, I'm going to get a paycheck. But, I went through instructor training courses and then fumbled through the first few classes of teaching them. But, it was really grasping this. I'm good at this job. I know how to do this job. And really trying to convey the skills to convert people who were other jobs, now train them to be Patriot missilemen. It was interesting, but it was something that I now can look back on. And that was really the threshold of being able to stand in front of somebody confidently and sell them on the knowledge that I have. And so, none of the, I have a very unconventional path to architecture. Again, I could go down the crazy long list and but I mean, all of it was life skills that I can bring to it. So that's how I started.
Nice.
Before we get to Evan, let's talk about our other sponsor, our new sponsor, actually.
Yeah, let's talk about NCARB. And for those of you who are involved in architecture, I'm sure you know what NCARB is. But for those of you who maybe haven't heard of NCARB, this episode is sponsored by National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, helping aspiring architects reach their career goals. Visit blog.ncarb.org for exclusive tips on navigating the path to licensure. And so for those of you who don't know, we've talked about NCARB in the past, but NCARB is responsible for making sure that people who are interested in getting licensed go through the proper channels to actually do that. And so the last year or two, I would say, they've come up with a couple of interesting changes to the way they've done things for a very long time. And so
Yes.
The blog is just one example of that. And they've become a lot more of a public-facing company, or not company, but organization. If you go ahead and check out the blog over there at blog.ncarb.org, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They're actually becoming much more of a public, helpful entity for people who are interested in becoming architects. So there's some really helpful stuff on there about developing your portfolio and interviewing and lots of great information. So I'm excited to see what NCARB's done in the last few months, but also what they're going to do this year. And so we're really excited to have them as a sponsor. And it just shows that they really are reaching out into the architectural community and developing relationships and starting to really change the face of their company and how we interact with them. So kudos to them. And again, thanks for sponsoring Archispeak.
Yeah, so definitely give them a shout out. Let them know you heard about them or heard us talking about them on the show. That helps them understand where the audience is coming from, and it helps us out a lot too. So definitely make sure you let them know you heard about them on Archispeak. So we really appreciate their sponsorship. So Evan, how did you get started, or what was your inspiration that drove you into this profession?
Well, it was a lot. When you were talking about your history, it's pretty similar, actually. Funny enough, when I was in junior high, I also took it was called Do It Yourself, and it was kind of a mechanical drafting / around the house kind of repairs class. It was a bunch of things mixed together. We didn't have a wood shop in junior high. We didn't have any shop classes at all. But this class, man, I just felt like this is totally what I'm into. There was drawing, there was fixing things. Like, I was the kind of kid who took everything apart and put it back together to figure it out. I've always been really mechanical, and I love working with my hands. So I built my parents' sprinkler system at their house. I figured out after I took that class, I learned how to do it all, and then I just did it. And then when I got into high school, I took architectural drafting classes for the entire 4 years. I went to school at 0 period. And had 0 in first period of architectural drafting, because I just felt like it was something that I again, like you, I was really good at it, and it was just really fun. That was like the most enjoyable thing in school that I could possibly do. There was a competition every year. It was an ROP class, which led me into this competition where we got to basically design and draw up a house, and then we entered this contest, and mine got picked as the winner. And so in high school, I had a house that was built by another ROP construction program. So it was designed by students and built by students. So a couple towns over from me, there's a house that I designed when I was in high school, which was pretty cool. So then after that, I went straight into Cal Poly. I had started to mess around with CAD drafting when I was in high school, and that obviously took off when I was in college. It wasn't really too heavily taught in college, but it was something that I took on myself. And I learned how to do modeling, and I started using Form Z way back then. Funny enough, I never worked in an architecture office until I was a junior or a senior in college. I worked at a ski shop because I loved to snowboard. And so I worked at a sporting goods store. I did ski rentals, and then I eventually moved into sales, kind of like what you were talking about, Cormac. And that's where I really started to cut my teeth on how to convince people of certain things, or just listen to them and try to solve their problems, figure out what they needed. When it came to gear and stuff like that. What were you going to say?
Oh no, I was agreeing that, it's kind of that listening. The listening skill was something that I developed when I was working in sales. Yeah,
totally. I then once I had my fill of, I would ditch class all the time and go snowboarding when I was at Cal Poly. And I could go to any ski hill for free because I worked in the shop and I worked out on the sales floor. So I got pro deals, and I had a pass everywhere for all the local mountains. So I got tons of skiing and snowboarding in. And then once I got up in 4th and 5th year in college, I finally figured out that I actually do need to actually get some experience. So I started working at HMC where I work now. But I left at one point, and now I'm back. But I started just so I could get a job and start fulfilling my credits to graduate. Actually, you had to have a certain amount of experience at a real internship, and I started off working on spreadsheets and not even doing CAD there. I just took whatever job I could get, and I worked my way up into becoming part of the design department back then. But I also built their websites, and, I taught myself how to code when I was in college, so I started building websites. So I built HMC's first 3 websites way back in the day. And I ended up leaving there and going and doing my own thing. I was there for 4 years, and I ended up just thinking I needed to do something else. And I didn't find another architecture job. I actually was doing so much modeling and animation, which was architecture related, but I went off and started my own company doing that stuff, and I did work for History Channel and Discovery Channel. I did the 9/11 special for History Channel that they probably still show. Did a bunch of animation for that with some friends of mine. And then I started Design Build Company with a partner of mine because I had also started teaching at Cal Poly again, and he was another digital design teacher there along with me. So we started a Design Build Company because we both love to make stuff. And kind of like you, Cormac, I went off and I tried a bunch of different things between my 2 stints at HMC, and I don't regret it one bit. I did so many other things, and I learned so much in the process. I learned how to weld, I learned how to fabricate, I learned how to work with clients one-on-one, I learned how to work with building departments and get permits, all the stuff that you really don't do working for a larger firm. And especially the working in the shop thing, which to me is kind of heaven. That's where I'd rather be doing, is actually making and installing and doing that kind of thing. And so then I actually did that. The business wasn't doing too well, and it was 2004, I think, when I went to work for Apple. And you didn't talk about Apple, right, Neil?
No, I didn't. I can mention it later.
I think that it's funny that we both worked for Apple because it was kind of out of left field for me. It was just something that I saw, and I applied for it, and I just went for it. And they were opening a new store right around here where I live. And so I had the opportunity to go be trained by this company that I admired so much. And so I got to do the pre-store opening training, which today is kind of unheard of, I think. Now you're just kind of thrown right into it. But that was one of the best experiences of my life because I learned customer service. I learned sales from the people who are the best at it. And that is something that I wouldn't trade for anything. I use those skills every single day at my job now when I'm working with clients. And as a designer and somebody who does work with clients early on in projects and then all the way through the end, it's my job to interpret what they say into the solution. And I feel like there's so many architects out there who just suck at listening. And so for me, I feel like I have an advantage because I worked at Apple and because I did work on my own for a while. So those things have directly translated into what I do now. So like I said, now I'm back at HMC. I had a couple other jobs in between there too. So it's my second tour, as I say there. And I've been there now for 7.5 years, almost 8 years. And so during all of those different things, working at Apple, I did another design and manufacturing job when I was working at Edifice doing design build. I was teaching at Cal Poly, and then I ended up teaching at Mount Sac as well. And so I was working 3 jobs, and then I ended up just getting rid of all the teaching because I wanted to really focus on my career and becoming an architect. So I got rid of those, and now I just work at HMC. And then I do the other little things on the side like this, and I do Method, my other website, getmethod.com, and then I'm starting up a new thing. It's called Space Shop. So more on that later, but you can go to spaceshop.co and check it out. But I feel like I've always got lots of irons in the fire, and I feel like part of me being a well-rounded architect comes from this history of just trying anything that comes my way.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like, I guess I shouldn't say this. I have wondered what would it have been like if I just would have stuck at HMC or some architecture firm. Where would I be now? But it doesn't take me too long to realize that what I did was exactly right for me, because it's so many things that I love. I totally feel like the polymath, or I feel like there's so many things that I am completely obsessed with that one career doesn't solve that for me. So I feel like there's so many things that I still want to keep my fingers in all these different pies because they're so interesting to me. And you can kind of see that when in that blog post, my favorite things. That's just like one tiny piece of my life. It's cars and bikes and all those other things aside from architecture.
Right.
So it's been a really interesting journey thus far, but I feel like it all feeds into what I do now. So it's been fun.
Well, like you, Evan, I also worked at Apple, and you mentioned 2004. I think that's actually when I started with them as well. I applied just as a spur of the moment sort of thing. I had a full-time job working in an architectural firm at the time, and went ahead and tried it and interviewed over the phone, and then did a face-to-face which was basically the store management at the time. And like yourself, they were very receptive, and I, like yourself as well, got to go through. We did it on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, all day training for 3 weekends in a row.
Yeah, that was it.
And what was really cool about this, as a little side note here, because I live here in the Bay Area, I got to actually do all of my training in the facility where they actually designed the stores. And so they have an office building, basically. It's off campus, off the main Apple campus that they used, and they actually would build the store. They would build the mock-up of the store.
Full-size mock-up.
A full-size mock-up. And in fact, we were not allowed in that space. They had it roped off, and we were using the rooms and the conference areas and the lobby spaces around that area, but we were never allowed to go in it. But what's cool is that a lot of what Apple did in their stores was there. I mean, they experimented with different types of lighting systems, different sorts of tables and display areas, and how they would get named, and all of that stuff was there. They like literally built it, tore it apart, built it again, tried different things, and that was all in that facility. So that was a really great experience, and like you mentioned, really just taught you a lot about, like you said, sales, but listening, very important skill. So yeah, I definitely carry those experiences with me. And as part, as you mentioned, you were doing a store opening. I was lucky enough to be one of the first members or one of the original crew that opened up the flagship San Francisco store in downtown San Francisco. And that was Apple's, I think they only had like 2 or 3 flagship stores at the time. Now they've got dozens, but it was a very big deal. Steve Jobs, the entire executive staff was there at the store opening. So what a great experience that was to play a part in that.
Yeah, I think there was 23 people when we opened the store.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and now,
Oh, you mean employees?
Employees.
Right.
Yeah, and then when I went back, a few years ago and just saw a couple of my friends who still work there, they made it their career.
Right.
There was over 200 employees in the same store.
Oh my gosh.
It's grown an immense amount.
I can't remember the exact number of the employees we had at San Francisco at the time, but it couldn't have been more than 40 or 50. Maybe it was a little bit more, but I really don't think there was that many. And I have no idea how many people are in that San Francisco store now as far as employees go. But I transferred to a store closer to my home and I got to be a member of that opening crew. And so that was a pleasure to actually take place in 2 store openings.
Cool.
And that store, like you mentioned, Evan, only had about, I think, maybe 20 people.
Yeah,
in that
smaller store.
Oh, it's
not
a
the
really
flagship.
small store and maybe only, I don't know, 16 or 18 employees, maybe 20 at the most. And I still have friends that still work in that same store. Yeah. And like you just said, I think last I was in there not that long ago, I think my friend said they've got like about 120 employees. It's like, this is crazy.
Couple funny things.
Crazy.
I actually was building a store when I was doing design build in the mall that the Apple store was being built in.
Uh-huh.
And so I was up there because we did design build. I was there installing some stuff. And I walked down to the Apple store, and it was obviously the whole mall was being built at the same time because it was brand new, everything. And I walked into the Apple store because I had my hard hat on. I had my steel toe boots. So I just walked in. And the contractor was in there, and he's like, "Hey, who are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm building a store up here. I just wanted to check this out." And he gave me the full-on tour of the store. Right. Before it was even open, and he was talking about the air distribution and the lighting and how it had all been patented by Apple, and it was all really cool. Like, he was excited. It was neat to see a contractor be excited about what he was building, and the store had the stainless steel facade, and he talked about where it came from and how much it cost and all that kind of stuff. And so it was pretty cool when I went through training, and people were like, "I wonder what the store's like," because no one could. The mall wasn't open yet. You couldn't even tell, and it was my little extra special thing that I already knew about it. That was fun.
Nice. Well, one of the things I didn't mention, I said I've had a job in architecture basically ever since I virtually started. And that is true. I did at one point take a job with a developer. And when I first took that job with them, I was actually technically I was doing forward planning for them. So I really wasn't doing day-to-day architecture. I was, as a planner, though, I was in charge of getting projects built. And part of that was dealing with the architects, dealing with the landscape architects, the civil engineers, and everyone involved in developing a project. And so that was another great skill set that I gained just because I had to deal with construction, I had to deal with sales, I had to deal with purchasing, and all these different people that had input on basically what we were building and then, selling. And so it was a really wonderful experience to learn about an industry that I had been involved with heavily for over a decade at that point, and to a certain extent even longer, and to find out, because when you're on the find out how some of these decisions are made. Because when you're on the outside and you're just doing the architecture, you get these ideas or goals set down upon you by the developer. It's like, okay, I need this and this. Oh, we're changing this. We're doing that. And you often wonder, why are they making these decisions? Because sometimes they just don't make sense. And so when I got a chance to work on the other side of the fence, so to speak, it was, whoa, okay, well, sales has these interests and purchasing has these issues, or construction have these issues, finance has these issues. And it's really, it was an eye-opening experience for me, and one that was also very interesting because I got a chance to actually turn the tables on some of my bosses that I had worked with. I mean, I was doing production housing, and so I went to a developer who was now turning around and I was actually going back out and hiring my former firm to do work. And so I had a very interesting experience where I received a set of preliminary drawings from the architect, and they just weren't up to standard. They weren't good. And I called them up and just read them the riot act, because I knew what I was looking at. And I think they were used to, somebody in a more of a planning position that didn't really have any architecture experience, didn't really understand what it took to put together a set of drawings. And they were giving me something, and I was looking at it, I was like, okay, this is not very good. And I could call them out on it because I knew what I was talking about, and I had done it. I had been on the other side of that fence. Mm-hmm. So it was a really interesting experience to be able to do that. Not only just to see how all of the sausage is made, so to speak, on how that is produced.
The sausage factory, yeah, totally.
Yeah, but it was also an experience on how do I deal with all of these different consultants, because I was so used to being on the consultant side. And so one of the things I consciously did, we all hate this. I mean, how many of our listeners have had your client call you up on a Thursday afternoon, or say, even worse, a Friday afternoon, and oh my God, here's this big, huge issue, and I need all these questions done by Monday.
That happened to me last week. Yeah.
Okay. So happens all the time, right? So what I tried to do is, because I hated that. And I hate, of course, what do? Okay, you bust your butt all weekend long, when he's out, having his cocktails and barbecue over the weekend, you're in the office working, right? And I hated that. I never liked that. So as me being on the other side, I always made sure that that never happened. I always made sure my architecture team or my landscape or civil engineers, they knew what was coming. They had the schedule. I almost never had to call them and say, I need something right away. In fact, I learned the trick of basically creating artificial deadlines before my real deadlines. So I'd tell them, hey, I need it by, this Friday or something. And it was like a week ahead of when I really needed it.
Yeah.
Because I anticipated there would be problems, or maybe 2 weeks ahead. And so that I could actually do that, so that I wouldn't run into those problems. So I was trying to help out the people on the other side so that there wouldn't be those problems. And so I think these are all great skills to have, to develop yourself. And I think also too, becoming doing a stint as a forward planner, I learned a lot about how you actually pull a building permit, how you get improvement plans done, how you record a final map on a project. These were all tasks that, as an architect, I had never done.
Yeah.
Just because of the type of work I was doing, I was always, here's the building, I need this architecture. We'd give them the set of plans, and that would be it. And so I learned all these other skills, which ended up becoming very important, as now I'm actually a member of my local planning commission. And all of those skills now, I mean, I'm not actually doing improvement plans, but when we get projects in front of the planning commission, I get all those plans and I can totally understand them. I know what they're talking about and I can read them. And it makes understanding the projects and understanding the planning documents that we have in our general plan and our zoning code, it helped me understand all of that. Yeah. And so, those are all good skills that really help you prepare for any job in architecture, whether you're before, during, or after school. And also too, what if you lose your job? So all of these other skills help you to either find other work, or, allow you to grow And, like you said, Evan, it gives you interest to do other things as well. So if one job doesn't work out, you have something else to fall back on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's great advice. Any final words of wisdom, Cormac?
Well, I was just curious, in all of the lists of jobs that you guys have had, what's been
I counted 13, so I don't have nearly as many as you.
What's been your favorite?
Oh, man. Well, there's just favorites for different reasons. Like I said, I really loved the experience I had at Apple, but I loved what I was doing when I was doing design build, and that was a completely different experience from the stuff that I do now that I love, which is working with clients on a much bigger scale and making buildings for many people, which is part of the whole public works part of it that I really enjoy, is kind of architecture for the people, not just for the elite or for the rich, in the high-end homes, but when I'm doing public schools or university work, I get a lot out of that because it's for so many people.
You mentioned design build, and one of the things that you didn't mention, but because I've done some design build as well. I mean, one of the first projects I did design build was for the town of Seaside in Seaside, Florida. If people are familiar with the new urbanist community of Seaside, we did the big sundial. We helped build basically one of their little parks. It's on about an acre park, and there's this it's got to be at least 15-20 foot high sundial with on a big concrete base with concrete numbers all over the place, and a couple of like ziggurats and all sorts of things to kind of play and climb on and stuff.
Anytime you get to say that word,
exactly,
it's impressive.
It is, because how many times do you get to say ziggurat in your daily use?
Right.
But I mean, the thing that I learned doing design build that translates, fantastically to the day-to-day of architecture is learning how to put things together. How do things go together? It's actually one of one of my strongest skills, is being able to take a concept and just basically be able to sit down and visualize exactly how it'll all go together, and then be able to then turn around and draw it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because a lot of times, people will default back to, well, this is the way that Revit drew it. I was like, but is that the way that you're going to build it? Well, I don't really know. Like,
that's Revitism.
Exactly. So it's just like, well, I mean, maybe. So learning how to swing a hammer. I mean, all of these projects, or a lot of schools are really starting to start doing these design build programs. I mean, Rural Studio at Auburn, kind of
insert plug
here for the good old Rural Studio. But I mean, I thought that what these kids learn coming out of that program and all of these other programs like that are absolutely invaluable, because being able to understand how to build something, swinging a hammer, the sweat equity that goes into it. I mean, you really do have a greater appreciation. I mean, that's why I love doing construction administration. I mean, a lot of people hate doing construction administration. I absolutely love it, because I love to be able to see that I had a say in the seed that planted this whole thing, all the way up to being there when the keys are handed over to the client, and everything in between. And it's just fantastic experience.
The coolest thing to me about CA is the intense solving problems.
Yes,
that goes on day to day.
Yeah,
because it's not all in the drawings, and it is not all completely thought out. And if you have the opportunity to be there, and when those questions come up, it's invaluable to the project coming out the way that you designed it, the way that you intended for it to be. And that's, I think, it's stressful, but it's fun and rewarding to be out there on the site and to be able to solve those problems with the contractor. It's really cool.
Here, I'll give you this real quick example. So existing building that we've got going on right now, there's a handful of renovation that goes on the existing building. The new portions, they're a lot easier. So the interface between all of the new construction and the existing building. We get in there. Once you pull down the existing ceilings and stuff and you realize, it wasn't as high as we thought it was. So now we've got to tighten up the space where we're putting in all of the mechanical fire protection and everything else. It forced what was going to be a 9-foot ceiling. It forced it to be pushed down to 8-foot ceiling. But I've got windows that the head height is 9 feet. So what do you do? And I'm not going to tell you what my solution was, but these are the fun things that
just come up,
that you're able to look at, see the issue, and then be able to think through it, because you've got that experience of being able to kind of like fit all the parts and pieces together to really kind of do it. And those are the fun things about being able, to do all of the design build stuff, that you're able to really kind of think through these things. And I'm not saying that, people who haven't had the opportunity to do design build aren't able to do that, but I think it gives you that little bit of extra. But I did want to say one thing before I kind of be quiet about my jobs and stuff. Is one of the coolest things, job-wise, that I've ever done. I worked in St. Petersburg, Florida. A lot of people don't know this, but the Salvador Dali Museum there's 2 Salvador Dali museums. There's one in his hometown in Spain, and there's one in St. Petersburg, Florida. The one in St. Petersburg, Florida has the largest collection of Salvador Dali work, and one of the most famous ones is the disintegration of persistence of memory. There's the persistence of memory and disintegration of persistence of memory, the melting clocks and everything. Mm-hmm. Well, I got to hold it in my hands.
Nice.
Hold it. People have to stand behind velvet ropes and look at this thing and not get anywhere near it. And I got to hold it in my hands. And that was the coolest thing. Because love or hate Salvador Dali, he is a genius and a master and has got some awesome technique. And I got to hold some of his paintings.
That's awesome.
And a couple of Picassos too, but who's counting?
Dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing I would like to kind of end with a couple of just poignant things here. Number one is I would challenge people to step outside of their comfort zone, especially if you haven't kind of settled into your career yet, and find work that, like the things that we're talking about, where you are developing other skills other than architecture. Architecture will always be here. There's definitely... It doesn't move as fast as some of this other stuff does. And so if you were to get laid off, or maybe you just haven't picked that dream job yet, try different things out, because I really feel like your skills, especially in customer service, if you're going to be working in architecture is about working with other people, whether it's the team that you're working with or the people that you're working for, whether that's in your office or with your clients or with your clients' clients, or if you go into public work, man, it's navigating that system of all the people that you have to be able to listen to and talk to and respond to. It's a big deal. And I feel like anything that you can do, like Cormac brought up, working in the food industry, that is the front lines of customer service. If you stand in a line at Starbucks, you know what I'm talking about. If you go to the Genius Bar at an Apple store, you know what I'm talking about. It's dealing with people in their happiest state and dealing with them in their most pissed off state. And you get one of each every 15 minutes. It just moves at a speed that is much different than a lot of different jobs. So I recommend that. I think it really does develop character. It also develops skills that you can actually use in architecture. So it's kind of my final parting words of wisdom there is try other stuff. Architecture is going to be there.
Well said.
Excellent. I would agree. Nothing more to add on that part. So I guess that brings us to the end.
Here we are.
So first off, shout out to and thank our sponsors, ArcCat and NCarb, for sponsoring this episode of the Archispeak podcast. Go visit the site at archispeakpodcast.com, and there you'll find links to our Facebook page where you can see Alexander's comment, and also our links to our individual Twitter accounts where you can interact with us on a daily basis.
Yeah, and if you guys have ideas for episodes, tweet us. Let us know what you want to hear about.
Yeah. Or don't forget, you can always call and tell us, and then we can include your audio in the show at 415-484-8496. And just a last reminder, if you haven't already done so, leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps when people are looking for the show. They see those reviews, and it really helps get the word out about the show. So, all right, guys, we're done. Thank you very much for listening.
And tell us your job stories.
Let us know. Archispeakpodcast.com.
I've got at least 36 of them covered.
Cool.
All
right, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
All the outline, my body in Tiffany blue. When I died, I drove right in and swam with the dolphins and Lisa Frank and you. My funeral was beautiful. Oh, we got it for days on end. Thank God I'm cut, 'cause of my kind of luck, I'll be up on the block in front of all of my friends. This is what you get. This is what you get. This is a schedule, this is a set. It's unpredictable lest you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know. This is what you get. This is a schedule, this is a set. It's unpredictable lest you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know. Top to the basement. Blow by blow, kinds of steel, very real, very rock, but it's still very rock body. Paper, scissors, sister, preach, deep, open the rage, fast synapse. Bite jumps on pages after still the rage is a new tool and a toy for. And this is what you get. This is what you get. This is a schedule, this is a set. It's unpredictable lest you forget. If you blow, you can bet. I know. This is what you get.